It started like any ordinary autumn evening in the foothills of South Carolina. My name is Sam Weston, and I had spent the better part of the evening at a close friend's house just 6 miles from my own. Jeremy and I were tinkering with motorcycles, the smell of oil and gasoline mingling with the crisp October air. By the time I decided to head home, the clock had ticked past 11, and the world outside was cloaked in an impenetrable darkness. Little did I know this seemingly mundane drive would carve itself into the deepest recesses of my memory, a chilling encounter with the inexplicable. I slid into the driver's seat of my convertible, a little two-seater with a cloth roof that I kept up for the night. The roads around here, lined with dense forests and shadowy fields, were always quieter at this hour. I opted to take the longer, more scenic route, a habit that gave me a chance to clear my mind. The highway stretched ahead like a ribbon of black, with only the twin beams of my headlights slicing through the void. As the car roared to life, I settled into the familiar rhythm of the drive, blissfully unaware of the nightmare that lurked ahead. About 3 miles into the drive, my thoughts wandered back to the evening. Jeremy and I had laughed and cursed over stubborn bolts and an ill-tempered carburetor, the kind of banter that makes hours slip by unnoticed. But as I glanced into the endless darkness ahead, a strange movement caught my eye. At first, I dismissed it as a trick of the lighter play of shadows thrown by my headlights. Yet as I drew closer, the shape resolved into something more tangible, more unnerving. There, just off the shoulder of the road, something was moving. My first thought was a deer. This area was rife with wildlife, and it wasn't uncommon for animals to dart across the highway. But this was no deer. It was larger, its silhouette more menacing, and as my car drew nearer, the details began to sharpen. It had a hunched frame and an unnatural fluidity to its movements, as though it were gliding rather than walking. My pulse quickened. I instinctively eased my foot off the accelerator, the engine's growl softening as unease crept into my chest. The creature turned its head toward the car. The first thing I noticed were its eyes, two glowing orbs that caught the light in a way no ordinary animal's eyes would. They were yellowish, almost luminous, and they locked onto me with an intensity that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel, feeling the cold sweat on my palms. Whatever it was, it had noticed me, and that realization sent a chill down my spine. As I drew closer, the creature did something that defied all reason. Instead of retreating into the dense woods on either side of the road like most animals would, it started moving toward me, not cautiously or timidly, but with purpose, a deliberate and menacing approach. It moved on all fours at first, its limbs long and powerful, but there was an unsettling rhythm to its stride. It was fluid, too fluid, like watching a predator in its prime. My brain scrambled for answers. A wolf? No, wolves didn't exist in this part of South Carolina. A large dog? Perhaps. But the size of this thing made that explanation laughable. My foot hovered over the gas pedal, torn between the primal instinct to flee and the morbid curiosity to understand what I was seeing. The creature came into clearer view as the headlights swept over it and my stomach dropped. Its fur was a shimmering mix of silver and white, unnaturally clean for something in the wild. Its shoulders were broad, muscular, and impossibly high, giving it an almost human-like posture even on all fours. The closer it came, the more monstrous it appeared. Its ears were pointed, twitching slightly as they picked up the roar of my engine. Then, as if making a calculated decision, it broke into a full sprint. The speed at which it moved was unreal. Its limbs propelled it forward in a terrifying blur, and within moments it was closing the gap between us. My heart thundered in my chest as I slammed my foot down on the gas pedal. The engine roared, the tires screeched, and the car surged forward. But it wasn't enough. In the rearview mirror, I could see the creature gaining on me, its glowing eyes fixed on my taillights. A primal fear took hold of me, and I gritted my teeth, urging the car to go faster. The road ahead was a straight shot, no twists or turns, and I pushed the accelerator as far as it would go. The small convertible wasn't built for top-end speed, but it was nimble, and I prayed that would be enough. The wind whipped against the car, a deafening rush that drowned out everything except my own pounding heartbeat. I glanced at the speedometer 70 miles per hour and dared another look in the mirror. The creature was still there, now only feet away. Its gallop was relentless, its stride unnervingly smooth. I could see the rippling muscles beneath its fur, the way its massive shoulders rolled with each leap. It wasn't just running, it was hunting. And I was the prey. As the distance between us dwindled, I could see more of its face in the mirror. Its snout was elongated, almost wolf-like, but there was an intelligence in its features that went beyond any animal I'd ever encountered. Its mouth hung slightly open, revealing rows of sharp, glistening teeth. My breath hitched as I imagined what it could do if it caught me. This wasn't just a predator. It was something far worse, something I didn't have a name for. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel, knuckles turning white, and forced myself to focus on the road. Up ahead, I knew there was a turnoff that would lead to a more populated area. If I could just make it there, maybe the presence of houses and streetlights would deter the creature. But as the road stretched on, my mind raced with doubt. What if it didn't stop? What if it followed me all the way home? Just as the turnoff came into view, the creature made its move. It veered suddenly to the right, disappearing into the woods. Relief washed over me like a wave, and I let out a shaky breath, easing off the gas slightly. But that relief was short-lived. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a blur of silver and white cutting through the trees, moving parallel to the road. It was flanking me. My pulse spiked again as I realized what it was doing. This thing wasn't just chasing me. It was toying with me, forcing me into a state of panic. I slammed the gas pedal down again, the car lurching forward with a roar. The turnoff was less than a mile away now, and I clung to the hope that I could outrun it. The creature burst out of the woods directly in front of me. I barely had time to react. Swerving hard to the left, I narrowly avoided colliding with it, the tires squealing as the car veered into the oncoming lane. The creature was massive, easily taller than the hood of my car, and its body was a blur of motion as it lunged past me. For a split second, I locked eyes with it, those glowing, unearthly eyes that seemed to pierce straight into my soul. The car fishtailed, but I managed to regain control, my heart hammering in my chest. Behind me, I could see the creature slowing, turning its head to watch as I sped away. Its movements were deliberate, almost calculated, as if it was letting me go this time. But there was no mistaking the predatory glint in its eyes. It had made its point. It had shown me who was in control. I didn't stop until I reached the driveway of my house, tires skidding to a halt on the gravel. My hands shook as I turned off the engine and sat there, staring into the darkness that surrounded my property. The silence was deafening, broken only by the faint rustle of leaves in the wind. Every shadow seemed to move, every sound a potential threat. For the first time in my life, the solitude of my home felt suffocating. I grabbed the handgun I kept in the glove compartment and stepped out of the car, scanning the tree line for any sign of movement. The night was still, almost unnaturally so, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. With my heart in my throat, I hurried inside, locking the door behind me and double-checking every window. Even then, I couldn't shake the creature's image from my mind, the size of it, the speed, the intelligence in its eyes. Inside the house, the air felt heavy, oppressive. My mother-in-law, who had been staying with us, noticed the pale look on my face immediately. She asked me if everything was okay, her voice tinged with concern. I could barely answer her, my words coming out in a shaken mumble about a strange encounter on the road. Her eyes narrowed slightly, not in disbelief but in understanding. She had lived in the area much longer than I had, and her reaction wasn't one of dismissal. Instead, she simply nodded and said, "You're safe now. That's what matters. Safe." The word felt hollow. Every instinct in my body told me otherwise. I paced the living room, peering out the windows into the dark expanse of our property. The moonlight illuminated the treetops, casting long shadows that seemed to shift and sway in ways that made my stomach churn. My dog, a loyal companion who usually slept at the foot of my bed, was restless too. He growled softly, his ears perked up, and his eyes fixed on something unseen beyond the glass. I decided to sit down, hoping to steady my nerves, but my mind wouldn't stop replaying the events of the night. The creature's eyes, its relentless pursuit, the way it seemed to calculate my every move, it was too much to process. I kept the handgun close, my fingers brushing against the cold metal, a feeble attempt to reassure myself. But deep down, I knew that if the creature wanted to get into the house, the gun wouldn't stand a chance. Hours passed in a blur of anxiety. I moved from window to window, scanning the yard for any sign of movement. My mother-in-law eventually went to bed, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the dog, who refused to settle. Every creak of the house, every rustle of leaves outside sent a jolt of fear through me. I had never felt so vulnerable, so utterly exposed. When dawn finally broke, it brought a small measure of relief. The soft light of the sun chased away the shadows that had haunted me through the night, but the unease lingered. I stepped outside cautiously, the cool morning air biting against my skin. The yard was quiet, the kind of stillness that felt unnatural. I scanned the ground near the driveway, half expecting to find claw marks or some other evidence of the creature's presence. But there was nothing. The only sign of the previous night's encounter was the lingering dread in my chest. I called a friend of mine who worked with the Department of Natural Resources, hoping he might have some insight. When I described what I had seen, his response was dismissive. "We don't have wolves here," he said, his tone matter of fact. He suggested it was probably a large dog, maybe a stray that had gotten loose. But the more I tried to explain the sheer size of the creature, the more skeptical he became. Frustrated, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I spent the next few hours researching online, looking for anything that might match what I had seen. It didn't take long for me to stumble upon stories of creatures known as dogmen. The descriptions were eerily similar, massive, wolf-like beings with intelligent eyes and a predatory demeanor. As I read through account after account, a chill ran down my spine. These weren't isolated incidents. People across the country had reported seeing these creatures, often in remote areas just like mine. Later that day, I called Brad, the friend I had visited the night before. I needed to tell someone who wouldn't immediately dismiss me as crazy. To my surprise, Brad didn't laugh or question my sanity. Instead, he listened quietly, his tone growing serious as I recounted the encounter in detail. When I finished, there was a long pause on the other end of the line. "You're not going to believe this," he finally said, "but I think I saw the same thing." My heart skipped a beat as he explained. About a week before my encounter, Brad and his boss had been driving down the same stretch of road in a large truck when they saw a creature matching my description. He said it had emerged from the woods and crossed the road in front of them, moving with the same unnatural grace I had witnessed. They hadn't told anyone, brushing it off as a trick of the light or an overactive imagination, but hearing my story brought it all back for him, and the fear in his voice was unmistakable. Knowing that Brad had seen it too brought a strange sense of validation. I wasn't alone in this. Whatever this creature was, it was real, and it was out there. But the thought also brought a new wave of dread. If it was bold enough to approach vehicles on a main road, what else was it capable of? As the days turned into weeks, I found myself obsessing over the encounter. Every time I drove down that stretch of road, I couldn't help but scan the tree line, half hoping and half dreading that I might see the creature again. I even started keeping a journal, documenting every detail I could remember. The more I wrote, the more questions I had. Why had it chased me? Was it protecting something, or was I simply in the wrong place at the wrong time? And most haunting of all, would it come back? I also began to notice things around the property that I hadn't paid attention to before. The animals, once so abundant and lively, seemed more subdued. My dog, usually eager to explore the yard, was hesitant to venture too far from the house. Even the deer, which regularly passed through the area, seemed to avoid certain parts of the woods. I couldn't shake the feeling that the creature was still out there, watching, waiting. And while I tried to carry on with my daily life, the encounter had changed me in ways I couldn't fully understand. The woods, once a place of peace and solitude, now felt like a realm of unseen dangers. Every rustle of leaves, every shadow in the corner of my eye, became a reminder that there are things in this world we can't explain. Things that defy logic and challenge our understanding of what's possible. Weeks after the encounter, I couldn't shake the nagging sense of unease that had taken root in my life. Even during the daylight hours, the woods felt different, charged with an undercurrent of something unnatural. My research into dogman sightings revealed one consistent theme. No one ever truly felt safe again after encountering one. The memory of those glowing eyes, the sheer size and speed of the creature, had carved a permanent place in my mind. One evening, I decided to confront my fears head-on. I planned to drive the same route as I had that fateful night. Armed with a powerful flashlight, a camera, and a rifle, I set out just after sunset, determined to document anything unusual. If it was still out there, I wanted proof for myself, and maybe for others who had faced similar experiences. The drive was uneventful at first. The woods on either side of the road were quiet, cloaked in shadows. My headlights cut through the darkness, illuminating the same stretch of asphalt where I had first seen it. I slowed the car to a crawl, scanning the roadside with my flashlight, heart pounding in my chest. Nothing. I was beginning to feel foolish, wondering if my paranoia had gotten the better of me when I saw it. In the beam of the flashlight, just off the shoulder of the road, two eyes reflected the light. a piercing yellow glow that sent a shiver down my spine. It was there, just as massive and imposing as I remembered, but this time it didn't charge. It simply stood there, watching. I froze, unable to move, my breath caught in my throat. The creature's posture was different, less aggressive, more curious. Its head tilted slightly, almost as if it were studying me. I felt a strange mix of fear and awe, like I was standing on the edge of an abyss, staring into something ancient and unknowable. My grip tightened on the rifle, but I knew I wouldn't fire, not unless it gave me no choice. For what felt like an eternity, we stared at each other, locked in a silent standoff. Then, without warning, it turned and disappeared into the woods, moving with the same unnatural grace I had seen before. I sat there for several minutes, my hands trembling, before I finally found the courage to drive home. That second encounter marked a turning point. It was as if the creature had chosen to let me go, to give me a glimpse of something beyond the ordinary before retreating back into the shadows. I no longer felt the need to prove its existence to anyone. I knew what I had seen, and that was enough. In the weeks that followed, I began to find a strange sense of peace. The fear was still there, lingering in the background, but it was tempered by an understanding that the creature, whatever it was not mindlessly malevolent. It was a predator, yes, but also something more, something I couldn't fully comprehend. I stopped driving that route at night, not out of fear, but out of respect. The woods belonged to it, and I had no desire to intrude further. My life slowly returned to normal, though I remained more vigilant, more aware of my surroundings. Every so often I would hear stories from locals, whispers of strange sightings in the area, but I kept my own experiences to myself. Some things I realized were best left unsaid. To this day, I don't know what the creature truly was. A cryptid? A relic of some ancient time? Or something entirely beyond our understanding? All I know is that it exists, and it walks among us in the places we least expect. If there's one lesson I've taken from this, it's that the world is far more mysterious than we give it credit for. We like to think we have all the answers, that we've mapped every inch of this planet and catalogued every living thing. But encounters like mine remind us that there are still secrets lurking in the shadows, waiting to be discovered, or perhaps waiting to discover us. As I write these words, I can't help but glance at the window, half expecting to see those yellow eyes staring back at me. Part of me hopes I never see it again, but another part, the part that can't resist the pull of the unknown, wonders if I will. The world is vast, and the dark holds many truths we may never fully understand. But if you're lucky, or perhaps unlucky, you might catch a glimpse of one. Just be sure you're ready, because once you've seen it, there's no going back.